In this edition of Careers That Matter, I'm joined by John Rustad, the leader of the BC Conservative Party, and we're going to take a look at his career and what his job looks like. John, welcome.
Thank you once again for having me on.
As the leader of a party, what does your day-to-day job look like? What do you do every day?
Well, it varies for day to day. So a couple of weeks ago, for example, I was in 10 different communities. We did 4 rallies, 6 meet and greets, spoke at 2 different conferences, and then held a press conference. That was just 1 week. And so every week goes differently depending on what we're doing, but it's usually long days, a little bit of travel in between, lots of meetings, lots of rallies, lots of opportunities to engage with people in the public, and of course the work of the party, raising the money that we need and getting our candidates in place and working on the policies that we hope will get us elected here in October.
So what portion of your day is all of that being out there and being the face of the party versus the actual work of making the party be a functioning organization?
I would say 100% of it is outside doing that, and 20% is the internal work.
Oh, that's interesting math.
That's the only way to put it. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's internal or external with what you're doing. You're always the face of the party. That's just a reality. But I would say, about 20% of my time is on the structural components, the things that are needed within, because we're building out our team, of course, and we've got lots of good people that are in as part of doing that work that needs to be done behind the scenes.
How many people do you have to manage because you're still, in many ways, a nascent party, despite the fact that you've got a name that has history. You're building the party right now. What's the size of your team?
Well, depends on the components, but I think we've got about 15 or 20 now that are sort of core within the party. But then, of course, we've got hundreds of volunteers right around the province that are all out doing work, engaging with the key components that we need to do to connect with people and to encourage people to be supporting us. And
you must have a fundraising team that you're managing, or does that fall on you too?
We have a fundraising team as well that's out there doing things, but obviously, I'm attending as many fundraising events or other types of events that I can around the province to be able to add a boost to our candidates raising their funds and also the party raising money.
So let's go back to the beginning of your career. Where did you grow up?
Boy, that was several lifetimes ago now. So I was born and raised in Prince George and spent most of my time in northern BC. I originally started doing work in the forest sector. Quite an interesting career, both everything from logging to planting trees to doing timber supply analysis and forest development plans. I remember there was one time in particular I was out firefighting. And we were working on this, and the fire, suddenly the wind changed and the fire took off and raced around behind us and cut us off. And so we threw the equipment quickly in a vehicle, and we went racing through this cut block to get out of this fire. And the heat was so intense that you were shielding your face from the heat coming through the window. And I was just like, is this car going to explode? But fortunately, we managed to get through it and escape. So been some interesting experiences with that, and there was one time I was working actually in a little tie mill, cutting ties, trying to actually salvaging wood from a fire, and I had an accident actually working there, and I was very fortunate that it wasn't more serious, but I ended up slipping and falling, and my wrist actually hit a chainsaw, and so it was so very interesting components, but all of that led me into starting my own company, where I was providing geographic information systems analysis work to the resource sector. I had an office in Houston, BC, and an office in Prince George, BC, and about a dozen people working for me. And so all of that combined led me to the decision that things needed to change in BC. So that's ultimately what led me into politics, which was never a career path that I ever thought I would be taking.
Well, did you ever think that you would be an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Oh, gosh.
So,
yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
why?
That's in my
what
family.
was it about you that made you think?
That was in my family all along, right? My family is a family that grew up, or that, was just by nature, they were entrepreneurial. And so every business, everything I did, I always tried to be the best at everything I could do. And I would always be looking for opportunities. And so ultimately it was when I started my own company that I had that opportunity to do that. And we were very successful for quite a few years, but ultimately wound that down when I decided to go in towards politics.
Why would you wind down the thrilling experience of never knowing what's coming next week as an entrepreneur for the thrilling of experience of never knowing what's coming next week as a politician?
Well, ultimately what it boiled down to was I was so unhappy with where things are going that I actually sat down with my wife and talked about moving to Alberta. And because what was going on in BC from the 90s under the NDP was just made it impossible to do business, similar to what we're seeing today. And so we thought about it, and ultimately, decided I wanted to stay in British Columbia. My whole family's here. My wife's parents were here. And, I was involved in many other sort of business opportunities as well. And so I thought, okay, that left me with two choices. I either have to just live with it or try to change it. And I'm not the kind of personality that just lives with it. Mm-hmm. So I saw it and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to try to change it. And then I've discovered I actually enjoy politics. So hence why I've stayed in politics for many years now.
So a young person who might be looking at you at the moment going, yeah, I want to be you in the future. What would you say would be the most important personality characteristic that somebody would need to possess to be able to follow somewhat the path that you led?
Well, an independent free thinker. I think it would be a big component. Obviously, you need to be pretty self-motivated in terms of being able to go through and put in the hours that are needed, because obviously there's a lot of hours that go into doing sort of all those tasks. And so, but people, for example, in politics, they come from a variety of backgrounds. Everything from, people being a bus driver to people being a lawyer to people being a grocery clerk to people being a successful business operator. So you get people from right across the political spectrum that come in and be part of what we're doing. That's what kind of makes politics very interesting. But there is no job like it. When I was first elected provincially, there were fewer than 900 people in BC's entire history that had ever been an MLA. Wow. It's a very unique job, and it's a very unique opportunity to be able to be part of setting the course for what this province can achieve.
One question, though, is what toll does it take on your personal life? Because I can't imagine that you're getting an awful lot of us time with your wife.
Yeah, it's, and I had many conversations with my wife about this over the years, and she very much encouraged me to do what I'm doing today in terms of being the leader. And I gave her the option. I said, look, I've been in this a long time. I could retire. And she said, no, you need to do this. I want you to do this. Somebody needs to step up the plate, and she's been encouraging me for years to go into leadership. And so, that's ultimately what drove me is her encouragement. But yeah, it doesn't mean spending a lot of time at home. When I was a minister, I, of course, am a very hands-on type of person. So I put in a tremendous amount of hours. I think my worst week for hours was 84 hours in a week. And I tried to get my staff to get me to say, can you just get me down to 60 hours a week? They could never get there. My average was probably 70 to 72 hours a week. And, as leader,
just like an entrepreneur, small business
exactly.
person.
It wasn't a lot different from when I was running my own company.
Yeah.
And similar now to being in leadership. It's long days. You put in a lot of work, but I think it's worth it to step up the plate to try to make that change.
You must also have to have an appetite or a willingness to never really be able to say, oh, I'm not working today.
Yeah, there's never really a day off. There is days when I get to be home, I need to cut the grass, need to do the things that need to be done around the house, those kinds of things. And so I get home probably on average about once a week, once every 10 days for a day. My wife comes and travels with me a little bit when we get that opportunity to be able to do that. But it's just, it's the job.
No matter where you go, no matter what you're doing, the job is with you.
It's very true, and but it's very rewarding in many ways as well. For example, when you're walking down the street, I was at Italian Days not long ago, and this young lady was pushing her child in a buggy cart, or a whatever you call it. Anyway, yeah. She'd come out and she recognized me and she said, are you John Rustad? And I said, yes. And she said, I just want to thank you so much for giving us hope, for giving us this, potential to be able to change the problems. Can I give you a hug? And, it's really touching when that happens, because you know that what you're doing is making a difference for somebody.
Well, isn't that a great way to be looking at the contribution that you make in your life, that you made a difference?
And I look at that with everything I've done. As a MLA, some people say, well, what was your proudest moment as an MLA? And, is it, you got a hospital built, or, road, or, some project? And I say, no, it was the grandmother who was trying to adopt a grandchild and helping them through the process to make that successful. Or the elderly parents who were trying to get a new wheelchair for their mobility challenged daughter. And so those are the sort of things that, really, make it worthwhile, putting in the hours and putting the efforts, knowing that you've been able to make a difference to somebody.
Well, thank you for doing it, and thanks for giving us a little insight into your career.